Buddy, lunch is great. All right, as long as Marshall Weeder's having a good time, we are on track. I like it. Shh. Shh. So did you guys meet some good people at lunch? Did you guys find out what they do for fun? Did you figure out ways you guys can connect up with them? All right, couple things. So we're going to do a better job of keeping on track, on time in the second half. Just so you guys know, we know you guys come for the networking, and we just happen to have some of the world's most amazing thought leaders. We get that. So we'll give you longer breaks, longer lunches, everything else. We're just trying to catch up. And listen, at the end of the day, you guys can network your hearts out, have dinners together or whatever the whole evening, okay? I'm going to probably create another conference called The Hallway, so you guys can just hang out in the hallway and make tons of money. No speakers, just the hallway. Would you guys like to see the hallway? All right. All right, so now our next speaker, I first met, I don't even know how long ago, but I used to work for the Gartner Group, which is a high-tech company. And after I left the Gartner Group, I went out to Silicon Valley, and I called Guy Kawasaki, and I said, hey, Guy, can I hang out with you for the day? And he was presenting at one of the biggest venture capital firms, and all these high-tech entrepreneurs were there. And almost where every place where Guy goes, he's probably one of the most best speakers. He's so down to earth, so humble. He's done so much. How many followers do you have on Twitter, by the way? It's a bunch. 400,000. 400,000. So, first of all, how many of you have read this book, Enchantment, by the way? Okay, if you haven't, I want everyone else to raise their hands. Seriously. Promise me you will go get this book. The reason is, this book is all about the art of changing hearts, minds, and actions. He used to be the chief evangelist at Apple. There is no company in the world that does it better. Would you guys agree? Yeah. Nobody. He used to work directly for Steve Jobs evangelizing Apple, okay? And since the years he's left Apple, he's done all these amazing things. He's the co-founder of Alltop. How many of you guys use Alltop? You guys all should be using Alltop. It's a way to get your news quicker, faster, better from the people you want to know about. He founded Garage Technology Ventures. How many of you guys are raising venture money right now? Just a show of hands, okay? Guy, might be able to help you on those kind of things. The Art of the Start, Rules for Revolutionaries, How to Drive Your Competition Crazy, Selling the Dream, The Macintosh Way. He's a huge hockey buff. His daughter loves Justin Bieber. We'll make that happen. And I was gonna sing in honor. I won't do Bieber. I'll do that tomorrow night in honor of Guy. Anyway, so great book. By the way, would you say your life? You told me your life's work. This is the best thing you've ever done out of all those years. Yeah.
I say that about every book.
He says that about every book. This book just hit, the top of the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal very recently, yes?
Top is an exaggeration.
Okay. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a rounding standing ovation for Mr. Guy Kawasaki. Woo!
Nothing like an under-promise, over-deliver presentation. So let me tell you a little bit about my background before I go into my presentation. I worked for Apple from 1983 to 1987. I was Apple's software evangelist. So my job was to convince people to write Mac software. This meant that I worked for Steve Jobs, which was a very interesting experience, using the word interesting very loosely. The Macintosh division was the largest collection of egomaniacs in the history of California. And that's really saying a lot. That record was subsequently broken by Google, but it took Google a couple decades to break that record. Working for Steve, we had very special rules, unlike any other part of Apple. Unlimited fresh orange juice, $2 a bottle. We had a travel policy that any flight over 2 hours could be first class. And so my interpretation of that rule was the first class timing began at the moment you left your apartment. So I flew first class everywhere. I'd fly first class from San Francisco to Monterey. It was a great time. The company had two divisions essentially back there. Back then, the Macintosh division, which was spending all the money because we weren't shipping, and the Apple division, which was making all the money because they were shipping boatloads of Apple IIs. So if you looked at the Apple P&L back in the mid-'80s, the P was Apple II and the L was Macintosh. But we were such bad people that we would not let Apple II division people into our building. If you can imagine that, working for a company where one division does not let the other division into its building. And if you thought about it for another second, you'd realize that we were not letting people into our building who had paid for the building. And so quite logically, that pissed them off. So they came up with this great joke about us, which is, how many Macintosh division employees does it take to screw in a light bulb? The answer is 1. The Macintosh division employee holds up the light bulb and expects the entire universe to revolve around him. Hi, Sam. And how many of you use Macintoshes in this room? How many use any Apple product in this room? So everybody, that's great. Where's Larry? Is Microsoft a sponsor of this conference? Okay, I'll make sure that never happens. So the Microsoft version of this joke is, how many Microsoft employees does it take to screw in a light bulb? And the answer is none, because Steve Ballmer has declared darkness the new standard. Now, I've primarily been in the high-tech business for the past 25 years or so. I've watched, there's the only Microsoft fan leaving. I know, you just got a text message, your server's down. Another satisfied .NET customer. So I've been watching high-tech speakers for the past 25 years. And just between you and I, there's 2 salient points about most high-tech speakers. First, they suck. Second, they go long. And of any audience, you should understand that that's a deadly combination. If you suck and you're short, it's okay. Right? If you go long and you're great, it's okay. But if you suck and you go long, it's like being stupid and arrogant. That is a bad combination. And so what I've done for my speeches is that I always use a top 10 format. That way, if you think I suck, you know approximately how much longer I'll suck. Top 10 format. Did you find the mall last night? The 3 of us went on the shopping expedition. We went to the mall, yeah. So I use a top 10 format for my speeches. So I'm going to give you a top 10 about how to be enchanting. Arguably, though, you could say that this audience of all audiences doesn't need to know how to be enchanting. So let me give you my take on this, a top 10 of how to be more enchanting, if you will. So the start of great enchantment is that you have to achieve likability. Ask yourself, have you ever been enchanted, influenced, persuaded, or wooed by someone you couldn't stand? Probably not. Probably not. So you have to be likable. That's the starting point. And likability is really blocking and tackling. It starts with a great smile. This is an example of a not-so-good smile. This is the so-called Pan Am smile, because this Pan Am flight attendant isn't truly happy to see these passengers. She's faking the smile. She's only using the lower part of her jaw. She's grinning and bearing it, okay? I'll tell you a funny story, because there's so many speakers in here. I used this slide, and I figured out when I was speaking to younger audiences, they were looking at me like I was nuts because they never heard of Pan Am. And this is right after I telling them, I want to be, Tom Peters had a book called In Search of Excellence. And so he took people's expectation of business from surviving to excellence. And I want to take people's expectations of personal relationships from engagement to enchantment. And they would all be looking at me like, who the hell is Tom Peters? And so one day I asked, how many of you heard of Tom Peters and In Search of Excellence? And like 10% of the audience heard of. It's like a very scary moment for me. So anyway, start with a great smile. This is not a great smile. This is 50% of a great smile. I'm going to show you a great smile. This is your moment, Mari. This is a great smile. This is a great smile. This is using 2 sets of muscles, not just the jaw, also the eyes. What I'm trying to tell you in a very subtle way is crow's feet is good. Crow's feet is good. No more Botox, no more plastic surgery, no needles, no scalpels. You want crow's feet. Mari is a very good sport. I've been giving this speech for about 2 months now, and when I first decided to use this slide, I sent her an email. I said, Mari, I have good news for you and bad news for you. The good news is you will be in my enchantment speech. This means tens of thousands of people will hear about you from me every year. The bad news is you're in my enchantment speech because of your crow's feet. So to compensate her for the suffering and pain I'm putting her through, I made her a deal that if I sold 7.5 million copies of Enchantment, I would buy her a turquoise Porsche. Okay, so of course I'm about 1.495 million short of that right now, but you got to start somewhere. So this is a great smile, truly. You want crow's feet. Crow's feet is good. Next thing you need to do is to dress for a tie. There are 3 theories of dressing. Number 1, you could dress underneath your audience. You know they'll all be in suits, but you wear t-shirt, jeans, and sneakers. This is you saying to them effectively, I do not respect you. I don't give a damn who you are. I'm wearing t-shirt, jeans, and sneakers. You could also overdress. In this case, you're saying, I am better than you. I am richer than you. So what you want to do to be likable is to dress equally, roughly equal to your audience. Of course, none of you are wearing aloha shirts today, but generally speaking, this, by the way, is an Ann Namba aloha shirt. This is not just any aloha shirt, okay? So dress for equals. And the last thing is to perfect your handshake. This is the mathematical formula of the perfect handshake. This formula was calculated by the University of Manchester. Luckily, no American tax dollars were spent calculating this formula. We like to spend our money on bombs and missiles. This is the ultimate handshake. It has to do with firmness, grip, temperature, your Duchenne smile, the smile using both sets of muscles. You don't need to write this down. I'll provide a PDF at the end. This is the perfect handshake. So the basis of likability is this great smile, good handshake, equal dressing. Now, you can look at this picture. This is a picture of someone who I think personifies likability. This is Richard Branson. The circumstance here is that we were both in Moscow. We were in a green room, and he asked me, Guy, do you ever fly Virgin? And I said, you know, Richard, I hate to tell you, like probably many of you in the audience, I'm a United Airlines Global Services level, right? This is the highest level, right? They like bend over backwards for you. So Richard, I got to tell you, I never fly Virgin because I don't want to jeopardize my United Global Services level. And in real time, he got on his knee, he started polishing my shoes with his jacket. This is likability. And this is the day I started flying Virgin America. Now, by contrast, if you're going to wait for the day when Steve Jobs polishes your shoes with his jacket, so you use a Macintosh, you're going to wait a long time, okay? As the Chinese say, you have to wait by the river a long time before a roast duck will fly into your mouth. The next level, the next pillar of enchantment is trustworthiness, because you can be likable but not trustworthy. Of all places in Los Angeles and in Hollywood, you would understand this. You could like a celebrity but not trust the celebrity. For example, at an extreme, you could like Charlie Sheen but not trust Charlie Sheen. So how do you achieve trustworthiness? First, the chicken or egg problem. Do you trust others and they trust you? Or do you wait for them to trust you and then you trust them? There is a definite order here. If you want to be trustworthy, you have to trust others first. Let me give you some examples. Amazon.com. Did you know that you can buy a Kindle ebook and you have 7 days to return it? No questions asked, full refund. Many people could read a book in 7 days. Amazon trusts you, so you trust Amazon. Another tech example, Zappos. If Tony Hsieh had told me the model for Zappos was to enable women to buy shoes without seeing the shoe or trying it on, I would have told him he is nuts. No woman would buy a shoe without looking at it and trying it on. And yet, millions of women do this. And the reason they do this is because they have now come to trust Zappos. You can buy a shoe and send it back. Zappos will pay shipping both ways. And the traditional example of great trustworthiness is Nordstrom, the brick and mortar store. 3 examples. These organizations trusted their customers, and therefore their customers have come to trust them. They did not wait for their customers to first trust them. Next thing is to become a baker, not an eater. There are 2 kinds of people in the world. There are eaters who see a pie and say, This is my pie. I want as much of the pie as possible. The more I eat, the less you eat. The more you eat, the less I eat. It is a zero-sum game. Bakers, by contrast, see the world as an opportunity to bake more pies and to bake bigger pies. Bakers are trustworthy. Eaters are not. Bakers see the world as not a zero-sum game. The rising tide floats all boats. And the final way to become trustworthy is to default to a yes attitude, which is to say that whenever you meet people, always be thinking, how can I help the other person? Which is very different than thinking, how can the other person help me? Always be thinking, how can I help the other person? Default to a yes attitude. The next thing is to perfect your product, your service. So now we're likable, Richard Branson. We're trustworthy, Zappos. Let's worry about quality, the third pillar. The first thing you need to do is you need to do something that's dicey. This is an acronym that describes great products and great services. The D in dicey stands for deep. Great products, great services do a lot. They are not single functions. You don't buy an iPad just to read books. You buy an iPad to do many, many things. Great products are deep, lots of functionality. Great products are also intelligent. When you look at them, you say to yourself, someone was thinking, someone understood my pain, someone understood how to solve that pain. I have an example for you. This is a Ford Mustang, GT500 Ford Mustang, 0 to 60 in 4.2 seconds, 550 horsepower. As an Asian man going through midlife crisis, this car greatly appeals to me. Compensates for all my inadequacies. However, I have 4 children. Of the 4, 2 are in driving age. One is 15, one's 17. One has a license, one is getting a permit. So inevitably, they will be driving this car if I buy this car. It's just some circumstance, my car, their car is in the shop, or I have to drop them off, they have to pick up somebody. Some way, somehow, my 2 teenage boys would end up driving this car. And I think that is socially irresponsible. To unleash upon Northern California, my 2 teenage boys in a GT500, 550 horsepower, that is just morally wrong. However, I figured out that Ford has a great product, an intelligent product called the Ford My Key. And what the My Key does is it enables you to program the top speed of a car into the key. So I could loan my kids the Mustang with the key programmed to 55 miles per hour. The My Key does not control how long it takes to get to 55, but it controls the top speed of 55. That is an intelligent product. The C stands for complete. Great products are complete. It's not just the car. It's not just the physical steel and leather and rubber. It's the totality of the car, the service. Great software is not simply the download. It's the download and the apps and the OEMs and the retailers and the online documentation and the online support and the user conferences and the special interest groups. It's the totality of the ecosystem that makes something great. The first E is for empowering. Great products, great services make you feel more powerful, more creative, more productive. And the last E is for elegance. Great products have a user interface. Somebody cared about how you interact with this product. So, in your path to perfect your product or your service, ask yourself, are you creating something that's deep, intelligent, complete, empowering, and elegant? Are you rolling the dicey? The next thing you need to do is be able to describe your great product or service in a short, sweet, and swallowable terms. 2 or 3 words, 4 words, 5 words, but not 50 words. No acronyms, no patent-pending, curve-jumping, paradigm-shifting new products from us, all right? This is an ad for the New York Transit Association for right after 9/11. My friends at Corey K came up with this ad. If you see something, say something. Simple, short, sweet, swallowable. Most of us use a lot of acronyms. Most of us work for organizations that created mission statements, right? How many of you work for an organization with a mission statement? You can hold your hand up. These are the people who use Windows computers. So, let's just talk about mission statements. The way mission statements are built. It's a 2-day off-site, right? 2-day off-site at a high-end resort. High correlation between mission statement and golf course. Very high correlation. You take your top employees, you hire an outside meeting facilitator. The reason why you need to hire an outside meeting facilitator is that nobody on your executive team can lead. If you had someone who could lead, then you wouldn't need the off-site. So you have to hire somebody. Typically, this is a woman. This woman's name is Moonbeam. Moonbeam is a vegetarian, drives a Prius. She has a dual path career. She is both an executive coach and she is a Lamaze instructor because the process of pushing out a mission statement is just like pushing out a baby. So on the first day, you form cross-functional teams with the people you can't stand at the company. You climb ropes together, you fall into each other's arms. At the end of the day, hallelujah, kumbaya, you love all the people you used to hate. All right? The second day you're in a room like this, you create this mission statement. It's going to be good for the customers, the shareholders, the employees. If you're in California, it's going to be good for the whales and the dolphins. And you come up with a 50-word mission statement. Think of a mantra. What's the mantra of Nike? Authentic athletic performance. What's the mantra of Target? Democratize design. What's the mantra of eBay? Democratize commerce. 2 or 3 words, short, sweet, swallowable. The next thing you do is look at this. This is a crosswalk sign. This is the antithesis of short, sweet, and swallowable. And then to top it all off, I took a picture of this sign when I took my 2 kids, the same 2 kids I would not unleash the Mustang on. When we were visiting colleges 2 weeks ago, this is a sign from Brown University. In the Ivy League, this is what you need to cross the street. I was truly amazed. And I thought maybe it's only Brown. But the next day, we went to Yale, and they had the same sign. This is a whole Ivy League thing. Short, sweet, and swallowable. Not like this. Then the next thing you need to do is conduct a pre-mortem. A post-mortem you do after something fails, and you try to assign reasons or really blame. The problem with the post-mortem is it's too late. Duh. The other problem with the post-mortem is that most of the people who caused the post-mortem are gone. They were fired, laid off, or they split. You don't learn much in a post-mortem. What you should do is a pre-mortem. And a pre-mortem works like this. You assemble the launch team, and you say to the team, before we launch, let's just assume we failed. Worst case, let's assume the worst case, we failed. Now let's come up with every reason why we could fail. Software is late, software is buggy, marketing is not sophisticated, Salesforce couldn't handle a product like this, Microsoft introduced a competitive product for free, whatever happened. Let's come up with all the reasons, and let's go down through that list of reasons and eliminate them in advance so that there is never a post-mortem. Now this is different than saying at a staff meeting, does anybody have any problems or any comments? Because you know in that scenario, no one will speak up. Because to speak up with that question posed to you risks your career and your reputation. If you say something negative, you will create an enemy. If you say something negative, you will be seen as a naysayer and a laggard and someone who's not a team player. But if the scenario is, pretend we failed, why did we fail? Let's come up with the reasons. Very constructive in the perfection phase. The next thing to do is actually launch. To me, the key to a product launch, whether it's a book or an iPhone, is to tell a story. Tell a story about why you created this. Tell a story about how you were 2 people in a garage and the only place you could use a personal computer was at a university, at a bank, at a government agency. And you thought, surely there must be a better way. There must be a way people can have personal computers. So we started Apple. Or your girlfriend wanted to sell her collection of Pez dispensers online, and there was no way to sell a Pez dispenser online, so you created eBay. It's a total bullshit story, but that's the story they tell. Tell a great story. Tell a great story. The next thing is plant many seeds. I think there are 2 theories of marketing. Marketing 1.0. The way marketing 1.0, top down. The A-listers, the journalists, the power mongers, the oracles, Fortune, Forbes, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Wired, CNET. They have these very visible journalists. And you sucked up to them. And you prayed that they liked your product. And they would tell the great unwashed masses in the hoi polloi to use this product called Lotus 123. And if the Wall Street Journal told everybody to use 123, they would make the product. So you sucked up to them. And if you didn't do the sucking up, you hired a PR firm to suck up for you, okay? And then they assigned you an Oriental art history major from Wellesley to do that sucking up for you. The point here is it was top down. Marketing 2.0 has inverted that whole process. Because marketing 2.0 is about planting many seeds. It could be Lonely Boy 15 on Twitter who has 50 followers who makes your product tip. And if you could get enough Lonely Boy 15s, you will become successful. And when you are successful, then the A-listers have no choice but to cover you. Facebook, Twitter are great examples of this. Find me a story. Twitter is 5 years old. Find me a story that's 5 years old where some A-list journalist said, I predict the success of Twitter. I have seen the future of personal communications. You can send out 140 characters to anywhere in the world, fast, free. You could send out a tweet that said, my cat rolled over. The line at Starbucks is long. I just saw Mary Smith in a turquoise 911. You could send any of those tweets out. But right now, that's all people are doing. But someday, Twitter will bring down totalitarian governments. Show me a story that said that 5 years ago. The fact is that nobodies are the new somebodies. The nobodies at South by Southwest embraced Twitter 4 years ago, and it took off from there. And after it took off, then the A-list had no choice but to write about Twitter. If you buy into this theory, you have to plant many seeds, because it is easy to know of Dave Pogue at the New York Times, Walt Mossberg at the Wall Street Journal, Chris Anderson at Wired. It's easy to know those people. But Lonely Boy 15, how do you find Lonely Boy 15? You have to plant many seeds. You don't know where it is. Put it out there. The next thing is to use salient points to describe your product, your service, or your book. We like to use in an industry miles per gallon. What do people really care about? Yearly costs. Not-for-profits, they like to measure things in terms of dollars. But what do donors care about? Donors care about the dollar amount. They care about the months of food their donation buys for that poor kid. And in gadgets, do people think about gigabytes? Do you wake up in the morning thinking, if only I had a 64 gigabyte iPod, I would be happy? Or do you wake up in the morning thinking about how many songs and movies and apps you want? Use the stuff in the right column, not the stuff in the left column. The stuff in the right column are the salient points. The fifth thing is to overcome resistance. It used to be the theory that great products, people would beat a path to your door. It's not true. In fact, I could make the case that the greater and more innovative your product, the more resistance you'll encounter. This is one example. In the 1970s, the electronic gaming business was very tarnished. The retailers did not want to stock games anymore. So Nintendo was introducing a new game, and it figured out retailers would not stock their game. So what did they do? They added a robot to the family computer system, and they positioned this as a toy, not a game. Retailers were not against stocking toys, they were against stocking games. And then they further positioned this as an educational toy. And they got kids to ask their parents for Christmas for an educational toy to learn robotics. That's how they broke down resistance to electronic games. More ways. You could provide social proof. Providing social proof means that people see that your product is being embraced. I think one of the geniuses of Apple's introduction of the iPod was the white earbud, because nobody else had white earbuds. Nobody else had white earphones. So when you saw white earbuds, you figured out this person is using an iPod. The more people you saw using white earbuds, the more iPods there were, the more comfortable you were with buying one. When you bought one, you added to the pool of white earbuds. Now there were more white earbuds, so more people bought iPods. So there were more white earbuds, so more people bought iPods. I'm not saying that white earbuds made iPods successful, but it surely was social proof that it was good and that it was succeeding. Provide social proof. Next thing you can do is to find a bright spot. You know, when you introduce a product or a service or a book, you may think you have exactly the whole marketing, positioning, and branding figured out. We thought we did with Macintosh in the mid-'80s. We thought it was a word processing, spreadsheet, and database machine. If you are a Macintosh user from way back then, you know we're 0 for 3. However, there was a bright spot. This bright spot was called Aldous PageMaker. And Aldous PageMaker created a really bright spot called desktop publishing. And arguably, desktop publishing, Aldous PageMaker saved Apple. No Aldous PageMaker, no Apple today. No Apple today, all our phones would have keypads. All our phones would have batteries that lasted for more than a day. All of us would be on a fast data network. It would be a different world. Aldous PageMaker was a gift from God to Apple. It saved Apple. I believe in God. And one of the reasons why I believe in God is there is no other explanation for Apple's survival than the existence of God. Now, you may be wondering, what the hell is this picture about Vietnam here? The point here is that a person went to Vietnam to fight malnutrition, lots of malnutrition problems. And he noticed a bright spot. In every village, there were a few families that had much healthier kids. So rather than focusing on all the things that were going wrong, he tried to figure out what the families who had healthy kids were doing right. And he figured out that all they were doing differently from everybody else was they were adding crabs and shrimps from the rice paddies into the meals of their kids. They were adding to their protein. That was the bright spot. He didn't focus on the negative stuff. He focused on what was happening that was good. Find a bright spot. What is your Aldous PageMaker? The next thing is to enchant all the influencers. I think that many people have too intellectual a view of marketing. And they figure out that, when we sell a product to a family, of course, we should focus on the dad. The dad is a decision maker. That's usually wrong. It's probably the mom. It could even be the sister-in-law. In an Asian family, it could be the older generation. However, all of that aside, in my family, it is the daughter. The daughter. Whatever my daughter wants, my daughter gets. It's that simple. You want to get to me, get to my daughter. It is that simple. Now, Larry alluded to Justin Bieber, and I'm going to tell you a story. Of course, I've been, probably unlike any of you here, I've been to both a Justin Bieber concert and a Justin Bieber movie, Never Say Never. And I want to tell you something. Just suspend your disbelief for a second. I want you to all, how many of you seen Never Say Never? Okay, so like 5 of you. I hope you had kids. So, I'll tell you something. If you want to learn about great marketing, Justin Bieber's movie, Never Say Never, is now on iTunes. It's probably in Blockbuster. If Blockbuster exists anymore. It's Netflix. It's somewhere. Watch Never Say Never. I don't know of a movie that explains marketing better than Never Say Never. First of all, you'll see how hard Justin Bieber works. In that movie, he's on an 86-stop tour, right? I give 52 keynotes a year, and I complain, I bitch and moan, I need a green room. I need certain kind of water that Tibetan monks collected. I need a certain sky blue turquoise shade of M&Ms. I need this special feng shui room in the hotel that faces south. I need all that crap. And Justin Bieber's traveling around this country in a bus. You see how hard he works. If any of you are interested in mentoring relationships, observe his relationship with his vocal coach. Very interesting how his vocal coach coaches him. And then he goes out and talk about viral marketing. His staff goes out into these parking lots and find girls who don't have tickets to the concert and hands these girls tickets just to see the pure joy that those tickets bring those kids and how they'll talk about those tickets for the rest of their lives. Talk about viral marketing. He's got it nailed. Trust me. Rent, buy, go watch Never Say Never. I'll give you a guarantee. If you watch it or rent it or buy it and you think it was a waste of your time, my email is guy@garage.com. Send me an email. I'll give you the money back. I'm telling you, it is a great movie. See Justin Bieber's Never Say Never. Now, we're going to segue from Never Say Never. You're looking at me like I'm nuts, but that's okay. We're going to segue from Never Say Never to the Grateful Dead. The Grateful Dead. Let's talk about making enchantment endure. The way you make enchantment endure is, one, to observe what the Grateful Dead has done. They have endured for decades. They are 3rd and 4th generation Grateful Dead fans at this point. One way they have endured is because they create an area at their concerts for tapers. Not that people use tape anymore. They support people recording their concerts so that they can share the music. Holy, R-I-A-A. Blasphemy. This is a group that encourages the piracy of its music and sharing of it. But by doing that, by encouraging people to tape their music and share it, they have endured. Another thing you can do is never rely on money. Money is the enemy of enchantment. If you have to worry about money and use money, if you need a commission or an affiliate fee, you should question whether you have achieved likability, trustworthiness, and quality. It should not be about the money. It should be because other people see your product or service as a way to make their lives better. It is mutual. It is long-lasting. It's deep. It's delightful. And it's voluntary. Don't rely on money. Next thing, invoke reciprocation. This is a carpet that depicts the war between Ethiopia and Italy. In the 1930s, Italy invaded Ethiopia. When that invasion occurred, the people of Mexico collected money and sent money to the people of Ethiopia to help them fight the Italians. 90 years later, Mexico had a really bad earthquake, and even though Ethiopia had a famine, the Ethiopians collected money and reciprocated by giving money back to, did I say that right? The Ethiopians, yes, collect the money to give money back to the Mexican people. That's how strong reciprocation is. Another example, right after the Civil War, the people of New York bought a fire truck for the people of South Carolina. They bought a fire truck for the people of South Carolina because they heard that people there were using the bucket brigade to fight fires. Actually, the people of New York bought them 2 fire trucks because the first one was on a boat that sank. 150 years later, the people of Charleston bought the people of New York a fire truck right after 9/11 because 150 years ago, the people of Charleston vowed that if the people of New York ever needed help, they would reciprocate. Now I'm going to give you 2 power tips about reciprocation that I learned from Robert Cialdini. The first is that if you are defaulting to yes, okay, you're defaulting to yes, you're helping people, they will thank you. The question is, when they thank you, what do you say? And I'm telling you, you should say more than you're welcome. What you should say is, I know you would do the same for me. Because what I'm telling you is, I believe you have class. I believe you reciprocate. I believe you're a good person. I know you would do the same for me. I know you will do the same for me. Which is to say, I'm putting you on record. I did something for you. I'm telling you, I know, you know, I know. That's the ultimate answer. I know you would do the same for me. Second power tip about reciprocation. Let people pay you back. You may want to be so magnanimous, take such a high road that you say, I know you would do the same for me, but don't bother. You don't owe me anything. Don't have to do anything. Life is good. Okay? I suggest you not do that. I suggest, in fact, that you enable people to pay you back because no matter what you say, they're going to feel like they owe you. They may want to ask you to do more things, but they hesitate because they already owe you. You may be perfectly willing to do more things, but they're not asking you, so you don't know. So what you should do is clear the decks. Enable her to pay me back. Clear the deck, and she can ask me more, and I can joyfully do more. Enable people to pay you back. I'll have a real-world example for you. We have some neighbors, and their kids are always at our house. They eat at our house. They sleep at our house. We take them to hockey games. They're very close-knit to them. And I know their mother feels like we do a lot for them. So I love to play hockey. And when you play hockey, adult hockey, you have to play it late at night. And my wife is a very busy woman. She works for nonprofits and for school district. And so she has a very professional and business life, so she's often out at night too. But sometimes there's nights when she has to go to her thing and I want to play hockey. Okay? So who's going to watch our 6 and 9-year-old? Now, you could say, well, what about the 15 and 17-year-old? But if you think about it, I wouldn't let them drive a Mustang. Why would I let them watch my 2 younger kids? So, I tell my wife, well, let's just have Corby, our neighbor, whose kids come to our house, let's just have Corby watch the kids. She goes, no, Corby's busy. Corby has her own 2 kids. You can't impinge on her. I said, it's not impinging. We have her kids all the time. She probably feels like she owes us. I'm doing her a favor. You get to go to your dinner. I get to play hockey. Corby gets to repay the debt. Everybody's happy. Invoke reciprocation. The next thing is to build an ecosystem. This is the completeness. Consultants, developers, resellers, user groups, websites and blogs, online, conferences, the totality of it. Think of some of the people, some of you authors. It's not just a book anymore, right? It's book, seminar, workbook, consulting. It's the totality of your ecosystem that makes you endure that makes you endure. Build an ecosystem. The seventh thing is, I think great enchanters have to be able to present well. Some tips that I've learned. First, you should customize the introduction. Customize the introduction for that particular audience, however you can. This is an example of what I've done. This is a picture of an LG washer and dryer. The scenario here is that I was in Brazil and I was speaking to the Latin American management of LG. After I got to Brazil, I figured out, God, you're such an idiot. You have an LG washer and dryer. You should open up your speech by showing your LG washer and dryer. But I was already in Brazil. So I send a text message to my 2 older boys, the same 2 older boys that I don't want to drive the Mustang. I send them a text message. I'm trying to invoke reciprocation. I send them a text message and say, this is Dad. Dad wants you to go downstairs, take a picture of the LG washer and dryer, send it to me. You know, this is the same dad that just bought you iPhone 4s. Stop Halo for a second, stop Call of Duty for a second, go down there and take a picture for me. Invoking reciprocation. About half an hour goes by, nothing happens. And I'm about to make that speech. I really need these pictures right away. So I send a text message to my older son asking what happened. And this is the exchange. I send a message. Did you get my text messages? My older son, Nick, says, Noah, his younger brother, said he did. By the way, since you're talking to LG, can you get us TVs? And you see my response. I doubt it. Because there is reciprocation and there is stupidity, okay? My poor precious boys, sitting at home playing Call of Duty and Halo. I'm not being a good father. They're playing on 20-inch, fat, ugly TVs. They should be playing on LG, 1-inch thick, plasma, high-definition TVs. What am I doing to them? I'm ruining them. Can you get us TVs? When I travel to foreign countries, I try to visit countries early to show that I'm not just the typical United States kind of person flying in, shock and awe. So I go in early and I take these pictures. I'll show you some pictures that I've used to introduce my speeches. This is me in Moscow, where I learned that Russians really have big balls. This is me in Edinburgh. Haggis. Oh my God. I'm from Hawaii. I love poi. How people can eat haggis, I do not know. But this is at Crombie's in Edinburgh, and this is the guy. He's like the Steve Jobs of haggis. And wow. I learned about him watching Bizarre Foods. Andrew Zimmern. I love Bizarre Foods. So basically, wherever I go, I watch the Bizarre Foods for that country, and then I follow his footsteps. So I learned about this guy from Bizarre Foods. And this is my favorite picture. This is in the Grand Bazaar of Istanbul. So talk about a Duchenne smile. You see that guy smiling behind me? That is the Fez guy's. Or he sells carpets and he sells Fezes and he sells Nintendos. I mean, he sells everything in the Grand Bazaar. I love Grand Bazaar. That is Duchenne smile. Okay, customize your introduction. Second thing you can do is sell your dream. Sell your dream. When you talk, when you make a presentation, sell your dream of what your book represents, what your product or service represents. Steve Jobs does not stand up on a stage and say, I have an iPhone. This iPhone is $188 worth of parts manufactured in China at a company where people commit suicide pretty often. And we're going to stick you with a 2-year data contract with the suckiest data service in America. This is not how he positions an iPhone, okay? He positions an iPhone as cool and thin, and there's an app for that, and power and productivity and creativity and all the good stuff. That's the dream of an iPhone. It is not $188 of parts put together in China. Sell your dream. And then for PowerPoint, the PowerPoint rule that I like to adhere to is 10 slides. This is the 10-20-30 rule of PowerPoint. 10 slides. 10 is the optimal number of slides to use. You'll be lucky to get 10 thoughts across in a presentation. Now, some of you are looking at me with skepticism. I know what you're thinking. You're saying, Guy, you're so full of it. You're such a hypocrite. You're telling us to use 10 slides. You've used 40 already. I'll tell you what the difference is. You're not me. Okay? So, 10 slides. 10 slides. 10 slides. You should be able to give these 10 slides in 20 minutes. Sure, you have a 1-hour slot, but let's face it, 95% of the world uses Windows. all those people need 40 minutes to make their laptops work with the projector. Okay? And then the ultimate font size is 30 points. Many people use 10, 12, 8. They put a lot of text. The temptation is when you have a lot of text, you read the text. The problem with reading your text is that one slide into your presentation, the audience figures out this bozo is reading his slides verbatim. I can read his slides silently to myself faster than this bozo can read them to me anyway, and you lose your audience. Now, if this is too dogmatic a rule for you, I'll give you a rule of thumb. Figure out who the oldest person is in the audience, divide his or her age by 2. You're pitching to 60-year-old people, divide by 2, 30. 50-year-old people, 50 divided by 2 is 25. You know, venture capitalists are getting younger, management teams getting younger, board of directors are getting younger. God bless you. Someday you may be presenting to a 16-year-old venture capitalist. At that point, use the 8-point font, okay? But until that day, 10 slides, 20 minutes, 30-point font. The 8th thing is to use technology to enchant people. Step 1 in using technology to enchant people is to remove the speed bumps, for crying out loud. Have you ever signed up for a website and they use CAPTCHA on you? CAPTCHA, the purpose of CAPTCHA is to reduce the number of people who register for your site, okay? So, what CAPTCHA wants you to do, that was a joke, seriously. That was funny, really. So, CAPTCHA is making you type in those words so that you prove you're not a robot, okay? So the first word is Holber, no problem. What the hell is the second word? What the hell is the second word? Is it Farsi? Is it Congolese? Is it Hiragana, Katakana? What is it? Korean? What is it? Nairobi? What is it? What is that? I'll tell you what it is. It is great. I could not have planned it better. It is Hebrew. And what is it saying? Obstacle. That is the Hebrew word for obstacle. I am not making this up. I just picked this out one day when I was signing up for a website, and it's the Hebrew word for obstacle. Even if you spoke Hebrew, and you knew Hebrew, and you knew that, would you have the Hebrew keyboard handy? I'll show you an example of a company that has removed a significant speed bump. This is a company called Sungevity. Sungevity is in the business of installing solar panels. What is one of the big problems of any kind of work like this? Getting the time where the people come to your house, look at your house, measure the roof, do all that kind of stuff. You have to be home, you have to be there, you have to go through all this. Hopefully they show up on time. It's a pain in the ass. It is a speed bump to putting in solar panels that you have to set up this first meeting for the estimate and the meeting and all that kind of stuff, right? So this very clever company, what they do is they take satellite photos from Bing. You give them your home address. They look at your house on a satellite photo. They mock up where the solar panels will go, and they create an estimate just like that. No meeting, no appointment, no nothing. Talk about removing a speed bump. First step, remove the speed bump. Second, generally speaking, in social media, you have to provide information, insights, or assistance. That's where the value occurs. Information, insights, or assistance, not that your cat rolled over. What happened? What does it mean what happened? And how do I make that happen for me? That's what you do on social media. And the third thing is some rules of engagement. The first is you have to engage fast, 24 to 48 hours to answer email and direct messages. I'll be the first to admit that I don't achieve this, but that's the goal. Second thing, you have to achieve many people. As I said, plant many seeds. Of course, if the Wall Street Journal emails you, you're going to answer. But I'm telling you, if Lonely Boy 15 writes to you, answer. Because Lonely Boy 15 could be the person who makes your tip. I keep alluding to this Lonely Boy 15 as if this is a hypothetical case. But one day on Twitter, Lonely_Boy_15 wrote to me, there really is a Lonely Boy 15. Engage many people. And then you have to engage them often. This is not something you do when everything else is done. Social media is core to marketing at this point. It's not something that you do after everything else is done. Engage fast. Engage everybody, and engage often. Last two topics. First, how to enchant your boss. The key to enchanting your boss, I did not have. Are you trying to tell me that I'm almost done here? Because that thing is blinking, but it was set to 30, not 45. Right? Okay, I got 2 more points. 2 more points. What are you going to do? Not invite me back next year? Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah. So, the way to enchant your boss is very simple. Might be painful, might just gall you, but the way to enchant the person you work for is when that person asks you to do something, you drop everything else and do it. It is that simple. That simple. As I said, it might not be optimal. However, the worst thing you can possibly do is to say to your boss, well, this is the other things I'm doing. I think it's more important than what you just asked me to do. That is not the way to enchant your boss. Drop everything. And then prototype fast. If your boss asks you for a PowerPoint presentation in 4 days, the next day show up with the text outline, just to show that I've made progress. You've dropped everything, and you increase the probability you'll do something good because you've already got a draft. She can comment on the draft. What happened to this projector? Oh, I thought you're gradually cutting me down. Never screw around with the AV guys. And the last thing to enchant your boss is to deliver bad news early. Always deliver bad news early. Never deliver bad news late. Even better, deliver bad news with a possible solution. Key points. Drop everything, prototype, fast, and deliver bad news early. Now, how do you enchant people who work for you? Enchanting down. The key here, the work of Daniel Pink. Daniel Pink says you ought to provide what's called a MAP. The M stands for mastery. That is, you enable employees who work for you to master new skills. Come work for me, you'll be a better person. You will master new skills. You will master these new skills working autonomously. I'm not going to micromanage you. And finally, you'll be mastering new skills, working independently towards a higher purpose, because our purpose is not simply to make a buck, provide a map. I'm not saying you should not pay people adequately. You should. But truly, truly, the way to enchant employees is to enable them to improve themselves, working independently towards a higher purpose, like making the world a better place. The next thing you need to do is to empower action. To say to employees, I think you're good, I think you're smart, I think you have good judgment. Do what you think is right for the customer. And the third way to enchant employees is to suck it up. Think of micro and dirty jobs. What makes micro so enchanting? It's because he will do the dirty job. Paint factory, poi factory, clean the landscape, go underneath the house and get the dead rats, go into the reservoir and pull out the dead fish. Whatever it takes, Mike Rowe is willing to do the dirty jobs. That's what makes him enchanting. You want to be an enchanting boss? Be willing to do the dirty jobs. Never ask people to do something that you yourself would not do. And now I have a final story for you because there's so many authors in here. I crowdsourced the cover design of my book, and this is the design I liked. A blue morpho butterfly, red background. I sent this cover to my publisher, Penguin, and they looked at it and they said, Guy, we hate this cover. Too self-help, too woo-woo, too feminine, too Marin County, too Boulder, Colorado, too Shirley MacLaine, whichever live of Shirley MacLaine. No real man would buy a book like this. I was heartbroken. I really liked the butterfly analogy of metamorphosis and enchantment and all that. So I thought, I'm Japanese American. There's this thing called origami. Not that I knew anything about origami at that moment, but I know how to use Google. So I type in origami butterfly, and I've come across this butterfly. This is the Alexander swallowtail made by a guy named Michael LaFosse. Michael LaFosse is essentially the Wayne Gretzky of origami, okay? So I contact Michael LaFosse. I said, Michael, I need a butterfly. I can't use a stock photo because all those stock photos are too feminine. I need a badass butterfly. So as a metaphor, just imagine if a blue morpho had sex with a B-1 stealth bomber. That's the butterfly I need. And so he created this, the Kawasaki swallowtail. This is the butterfly. This is one sheet of paper, if you can believe that. Okay? So he created this for me. And this is the butterfly that's on my cover. And I'll tell you something. This is the Kawasaki swallowtail. Have you heard of the Job swallowtail, Gate swallowtail, Ellison swallowtail, Benet swallowtail, Canfield swallowtail, Tracy swallowtail, Sugar swallowtail? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. This is the Kawasaki butterfly, baby. Strike this off the bucket list. I have my own butterfly. So this became the final cover. And I'm going to show you one more thing. Because there's so many authors, I'm going to tell you something I learned that maybe you can embrace. I figured out that the best place to sign a cover is on the outside. And there's two reasons. One is it's much faster. Two, the reason that people ask for an autograph is because they want to show off that they met the author, right? So why would you sign it on the inside? If you want to show off that you met the author, you should put it on the outside and show the whole world that you got the autograph. It would be like if you bought a Ferrari, you buy a red one, for crying out loud. You don't buy a white one. You're gonna flaunt it. Flaunt it. And then I tell people, this is a slide that I use in all my presentations. I tell people that what my handwriting there is resisting you is futile. I want people to say to whoever's seeing the cover, I read this book, now I'm irresistible. That's good positioning for my book. I also explain what I write because I had a previous book called The Art of the Start. And in a signing one day, this woman came up to me and said, Guy, you signed my book. I said, yes. She goes, well, why did you sign it? Well, first I have to tell you, I signed my books Kick Butt. Okay? The Art of the Start, I signed Kick Butt because it's for entrepreneurs. So this woman comes up to me and says, Guy, why did you sign my book Nice Butt? I'm not making this story up. And I said to her, well, because it's true. So anyway, that's just why I explained, she's trying to pull me off. You can't pull me off because my car's not here for half an hour. Okay, so this is truly my last slide, okay? Truly my last slide. Really, it's my last slide. And like I said, if you're great and you go long, it's okay. So, three things. One, if you want to PDF this presentation, just send an email to gina@garage.com. Secondly, if you like this slide presentation, I have a great person to make slides. She did a beautiful job. You saw my text outline. I gave her that text outline, and voila, this is what came back. So this is her website, annafxfz.com. And one more power tip for you authors. I have this service. If you have a phone, if you text the word Mac to the number 44133, you will get a return text message with a link to the Amazon page of the book. Okay? Think of what that means. Because I'm like many of you, I make lots of speeches, and I know at the end of the speech you say, if you'd like more information, go to, briantracy.com, or go to larrybenet.com, or go to guykawasaki.com. Nobody does that. Nobody does that. So the beauty here is that you tell people to text this message. They get a text right back. They can click on a link to their Amazon page and buy your book. And you capture their phone number. This is as good a way to close and to get sales leads processed as I've found. This is a very, very powerful tool. So do me a favor. Text Mac to 44133 and you'll see what it's like. And how sly is that? You'll also might buy the book. Anyway, so that in a nutshell, I actually could go on for longer, but that in a nutshell, start with the pillars, okay? The three pillars. Likability. Think Richard Branson gets on his knees and shines your shoes. Richard Branson for likability. Trustworthiness of Zappos. Women will buy shoes from Zappos without seeing them or trying them on. Trustworthiness of Zappos. And the final point is the quality, the product quality of Apple. You want to be Apple, Zappos, and Richard Branson, and you will be enchanting. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Guy Kawasaki. Stay here, sir. Come on.
What is this?
Come on, make him feel some love.
Thank you.
All right, couple things. Stay here.
All right, thanks.
Stay here. So,
Yeah.
what do you need help with, either personal or business related, that our community can serve back to you? How can we help you?
Word of mouth for my book would be just great. I hope you like the speech. The book is better than the speech, honestly.
I have a question. Would you guys support, him and I talked about doing 2 teleseminars, one with the founder of Apple, and who was the other?
Woz.
Steve
Woz,
Woz and a few
yeah.
other guys of his level, about how they've built these amazing type companies, maybe Branson and a few other guys on one call. And then we maybe do another type of call. Would you guys be willing to support that call for him if we did that? Is that good? All right, done. Thank you so much. I
Thank you,
appreciate you
Larry.
for
Take
being
care.
here. All right. Hope
I
you're-
know you would do the same for me.